Hi, I'm Mario Evon, and you're listening to Talk Truth, a weekly edutainment podcast discussing the things that most people are afraid to, but from a Jamaican perspective. From relationships, sex and sexuality, to the ins and outs of entrepreneurship, in this space we speak about almost anything with the intention to inspire, educate, entertain, and create a fair and balanced space where your truth shall become your power and set you free. Hey guys, welcome to this next episode of Talk Truth, and this is your boy Mario Evon, and I have someone on the show today who I've been really so excited to talk to, but she doesn't know that because ever since I've figured out what she does, I've been very intrigued by all the information she's been putting out into the universe. And I reached out to her and she decided she'd talk to me. So I'm very happy. Alina, welcome to Talk Truth. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for inviting me on the show. I was looking forward to speaking with you for a long time now. I actually mentioned you to Tammy Chin and she mentioned you to me. And we said maybe in the future, me and Mario could do something together. And here it is. We didn't have to stress too much. No, I'm not kidding you. No.
My mind is blown. Oh, wow. And that's kind of how me and Tammy ended up talking too, because I was looking forward to speaking to her. And then someone introduced her to my podcast. And then that was history.
Mm-hmm.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Apostol.
Apostol. And you know that you're an honorary Jamaican now because you've been living here for how long?
Almost 7 years.
Almost 7 years. Wow, that's more than honorary. That's the next level to honorary. But of course, I want you to tell us first, where were you born and where did you grow up? Because those two places may be different.
No, I was born in Romania and I grew up in Romania, in Eastern Europe. I left Romania I left my country in my 30s and I moved to Ireland for a little bit before Jamaica. Yes.
But Alina, you're like clearly under 30 based on how young you look. So that's uncomfortable. But I'll take your word for it that you left in your 30s and you're probably still, all right, fine, the math doesn't work out. And of course, the next question I want to ask you is, I could read out all of your accolades, but tell people, what do you do?
Yes. Well, it's not easy. It doesn't become easy to tell what I do. I mean, in the last many years, I've been trying to find an easier way, but it's not easy. So I have a background in psychotherapy. I'm a psychologist and I'm certified in family therapy and clinical hypnosis or psychotherapy. And because I never resonated with, I guess, normal way of doing therapy, and I've always been into mythology, from my love of stories and myth and Greek mythology and everything I read around psychology and deep psychology, Jungian psychology, because that's not what I'm certified in. So I'm certified more in let's say, modern psychotherapy, but I'm very drawn to the deep archetypal psychology. So when you blend these two together, myth and psychology, deep psychology, you get very close to archetypes, or what we call those main energies that exist no matter of race and culture, and no matter your upbringing and your history and your conditioning. So we all have those archetypes within us, and that is translated very well into astrology.
Right.
So
continue.
It's not easy to explain to people. It's not that straightforward to explain what I do. So what I tell my clients and everyone who inquires about me and what I do, how I work, I say I'm helping everyone with their challenges in the best manner I can. And I use the natal chart in any consultation or any conversation, and that's why I asked for your chart.
Right. So the natal chart does form part of the foundation of where you start with your clients.
It is my foundation. It is the foundation. So no matter where the conversation goes and what we are talking about, whether it's anxiety, depression, relationship issues, someone being in a misty space and not knowing what to do, needing perspective, I always start with the natal chart. And I relate back to the natal chart no matter what we talk about, because there are two things that an astrological or natal chart shows me. First of all, who is the client in front of me? So I see qualities, traits, potentials. I see ways of being, and I don't know my clients. Some people, strangers, have sessions with me, and I don't know who they are. So I relate back to the chart because that gives me a portrait of who they are. But I also see what kind of time they are navigating in this moment, because astrology shows the transits, which is what I write every day on Instagram. So the planets in the sky at this current moment, like the full moon in Libra that we are still into, is going to trigger something in everyone's natal chart. So I get a perspective into what is this person going through, because they may go through a big transformation or the need for change, or the need to delude structures and conventional things, and they need to move into some different territory. So I get to see that. And I also know their natural energies and natural traits.
Well, that leads me to my next question, which is interesting. Even though you've studied this stuff, at what point do you begin to trust it? Because you can have a feel for it, you can have a vibe for it. I mean, but when do you believe it? I read my natal chart because of the podcast with you and Tammy, and I was mind blown when I said everything almost. It was so accurate that it made me wonder, why didn't I have this document before?
Yeah, and you probably had a written report from one of the websites.
From our website, exactly.
Yes, so a consultation is much more than that.
Of course, I'm sure.
Yes, it's almost like a therapy session.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, and I distracted you. Back to the question. What makes you trust it? What makes you believe that it's real?
This is an ongoing process. Even today, I got a message from one of my clients telling me that something happened in her life and she's mind blown by the timing of it. And she related back to our last session when I said to her, expect a new job, change of residence, change of country. Expect that, because that's something that I see in your chart. And, people trust me because of who I am and because they work with me, but they don't necessarily trust the method because they are not astrologers. So she was writing to me how accurate the timing is, because I mentioned April and we are like, almost in April.
Right there, yeah.
And she's been asked to go to an interview for this job that just popped up in a country where she wanted to live in forever. And, it just came up. So I have these examples almost every day. And every time I have a session or a follow-up sessions with my clients, they come back with the things that I said before, and they in a way reassure me that what I said is true. I don't remember everything I say because I work with hundreds of people, and I really literally cannot, my memory doesn't work like that. I'm more experiential than I don't retain. I'm more of what happens in the moment and how we what happens now between me and you in this session. But I don't remember if I meet you 3 months later or 6 months later. I can't remember what we spoke about.
Which is probably good for the client sometimes.
So they tell me, they reassure me that I did a good job by, whatever I said made sense and that happened in their life. But I haven't studied and I haven't trained myself in predictive astrology. So I do psychological astrology. I'm not one who can predict events and specific events. I speak about energy. So I use the word change, but change can mean many things. So when I have a conversation with someone who is not a believer, I tend to say, well, you are right. I mean, why would you believe? Even I speak very generally about someone's chart and someone's transits in that moment of time and in time. And I don't necessarily, I translate. I don't know if I believe, but I translate because I don't know how life and that person are going to interact and what's going to happen from that. I do believe there is a choice. I don't believe in fate. So I don't believe that what I see in my chart or my next 6-12 months transits, I expect a certain type of energy, but I don't think I'm fated to go through something. I think my consciousness is able to choose how to navigate that energy. But on a very archetypal level, I know it's about change and transformation and purging and novelty and structures and foundation, depending on what kind of planet aspects what in the chart.
Well, you've said some important things. One, you remove the fact that your practice is not predictive. And I like that you keep referring back to the chart. So the chart is the foundation. How much does the psychology tie into it?
Oh, I wish
the traditional psychology, I guess.
I wish I could measure that, but like every other psychologist out there who works with clients, you don't necessarily know when that gets so integrated in who you are that you can't distinguish anymore. So I'm not sure how to respond to this question, because I think I'm all the time doing psychotherapy. Even if I speak about this full moon and what it represents, I think I still go into the psychotherapy mode or vibration, because that's my outlook.
They're always blended from your perspective.
Yes, and I do say that I'm biased.
Fun question.
Yes, go ahead.
You're biased today. You're biased to the astrological side?
to my therapeutic side. So, I do tell my clients that if you go to a different astrologer who is trained in a different method, like very traditional, who doesn't read and has no collaboration of thought with psychology and deep psychology, they may interpret this in a different way. The archetype in itself, a planet in itself, it's not going to change. So if I talk about Saturn, I talk about structure, and anyone in the world is going to talk about structure. However, I see it psychologically, and another person who never studied psychology, but they are an engineer, or they are a male, or they are born in Australia. So we are all biased. And I do tell my clients, this is what I do. This is who I am. So if you want a different approach, if you want someone who tells you what to do, go to someone else. And I do have clients like that. I do have clients who are not really interested in inner work and introspection and that kind of work that is required under any astrological transit. They don't want to hear about that. They just want to know, when should I sign those papers? When should I launch the business? What should I do there and there? And I can tell them that. But I don't believe so much in that specificity as much as I believe in why. Like, why is it important for you to do this now?
So hopefully that will help your clients to filter themselves, and the type that attract to your style will come your way, hopefully.
Yeah, and I do a selection. I don't work with everybody. I used to do that years ago No, I don't work with everybody anymore.
It didn't work out so well, right?
The last 2-3 years, really, I guess with every practitioner, you develop your method, and you have confidence in who you are and what you deliver, and you don't want to spread yourself too thin, I guess. So no, I don't work with everybody. I have a conversation before. We exchange messages. I ask them, why do you want to see me? What's your goal from this session? Some people say, my friend recommended you, so I have to see you. Yeah, but I need you to think about it before I see you. No, if you don't know anything about me, if you don't read my post, if you don't know my language, if you don't see who I am, then we are wasting your time and your money. If you have to know who you are coming to. Yeah, so it's
I totally agree.
Yeah. You wanted to say a fun fact.
I have a question for you, which is I wanted, it's not a fun fact. Tell us when your birthday is and what sign you are.
It's 22nd of October, and I'm a full Libra, although I'm born in the last day of Libra. But when I was born under a Libra ascendant. Mercury was in Libra on my ascendant. The Sun in Libra next to Venus, Saturn, and Pluto, all together in Libra. So I'm a super, super strong Libra with 5 planets, almost 6 with the ascendant. Yeah, so
You know
Libra.
that I was kind of disappointed I wasn't a super Libra because I am a Libra as well, and I think when I checked, I'm like 2 out of 3. But you'll tell me soon because we're going to apparently discuss my natal chart. But before we get there, um, I have so many random questions for you based on what you do, and this is more from a professional perspective. How do you create that boundary between work and life?
I
Because
never
when you're
do.
someone who feels energies,
Mm.
I mean, fine. All right. If I come to you as a client, I'm your client. So fine, you're going to be therapeutic or whatever to me. But let's say you're out on the streets, you're in a coffee shop, and there's somebody nearby you, and somehow you guys interact. What happens in for you with your kind of sensibilities?
So I don't think I ever turn off that sensitivity or sensibility. I don't think I'm, maybe when I'm
It's a
with my
part of you.
sister, maybe
Mm,
I'm with my closest family, my sister and my mom. Yeah, when
yeah.
I'm with them, I'm not the astrologer or the therapist. I'm definitely not. I'm me, whoever me is. But
Right.
any other time with my friends, with my clients, out on the road, in a coffee shop with my partner, um, I can't turn it off. So
You feel it.
I feel it, I see it, I translate it. Like even if I'm by myself in any kind of any environment, I'm going to, my brain naturally translates the energy based on the astrological space I know we are
Right,
in.
right. And even then you wouldn't have all the information of a birth date, a time, or a natal chart, but you just go off of instinct, right?
Yes, and I'm usually right. Like even if I see someone, even if I see someone how they eat or drink
Right.
their coffee,
Yeah.
I get information from that, or how they speak, how fast they speak, how I always get a lot of information. And I've never been one to jump on people with what I do, because
Right.
it takes
But
energy off
yeah.
me. So I conserve my energy a lot when I'm not working. But I mean, nowadays Jamaica is so small. It's very hard for people not to know what I do and who I am. Like the other day, I was in Negril on the beach, and this lady just came, and she's not even Jamaican, but she has friends that know me and they speak about me,
Right.
and they said, I follow you on Instagram. You are the astrologer, and we are like on a beach. I'm in my swimming suit. You never see me on a, like
Right.
you could
Right.
have been
Right.
wrong, but
Right.
so it's kind of, it's by default that I am doing it all the time, with whether it's a stranger or a friend. Or my friends don't know the limit between my friend. I don't think my friends know me outside of knowing the astrologer and me, or the therapist. And that's sad.
Right.
That's very sad, because I when I call a friend for something personal, I say, in this moment I need you, and I'm not a therapist, and I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not an
Right.
astrologer, and please do
Right.
not bring any of that, because I need you to hold space for me right now.
Yeah.
So
That must be tricky, but I'm guessing by now you have some people who know
yeah.
how to respond to you in these ways.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Well, based on the services that you offer, I wanted you to tell me a little bit more about kind of what that looks like. Maybe not for all of them, but the website describes adult and child psychotherapy, systemic and family constellations, and astrological counseling. So,
Mm-hmm.
if I was to throw a scenario at you, tell me what this would look like. Let's do one that's family, maybe relationship based. A couple comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and clearly would need more information. But let's say you have a Libra and a Taurus or something like that. They're coming in for, I guess, couples therapy, and you've decided
Mm-hmm.
to receive them. What kind of journey would you take them through? Of course, depending on the issues they have, but paint a picture for me of what that could look like.
Okay, so I'm one who doesn't believe in compatibility. So
Ah,
those sign compatibility, and I don't believe
wow,
in it. Yes.
wow,
So
that's a good start.
that's the main thing that I don't necessarily tell that to people, but I have to tell
Right.
you that, because
Yes.
most I guess most people who
Most
think
people
about
feel like there
astrology,
are,
yeah,
right. They
yeah,
do. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I don't believe in that. I mean, come on, you are a Libra. You must know that relationships are so complicated and so complex.
Yes, I
I
do.
think even this whole thing with astrology and us trying to put signs together, compatible signs, is just a way of labeling things so we can make it
Right,
easier.
right. Like everything in life.
Yeah. So I don't believe in that. So then I don't care about their signs. I want to look at
Right,
their chart, and I want to look at
right,
how the chart interacts one with one another. So me and you today, we put the charts together, my chart and your chart, and we can
right,
see our areas of strength, where you help me grow, where I help you grow, where you keep me stuck, where I keep you stuck, where is tension, so we can see all of that when the two charts are together. But what's
right.
most importantly for me in couple therapy, I look at the relationship chart. So there is a method that puts the charts together, and
Yeah,
a third chart is being created, and that is the chart of the relationship, and that tells a different
right,
story than the story these two people are going to tell you, because
right.
in
So
couple
charts of
therapy.
the individuals and then charts of the relationship.
Yes. So the
Mm-hmm.
relationship is going to show me what the relationship chart is going to show me, the needs, the impulses, everything that is constellated with these two people, but from the point of view of this third energy. And people don't
Yeah,
think about this energy when they are together. Nobody thinks about maybe Libras think, because they are so into
yeah,
relationships and partnership, but most people think about themselves and what's in it for me. And if you're very compassionate, you think about your partner also, but mostly people don't think about the third entity, which is the relationship. So they don't
right,
think strategically like that. But then when I see something in a relationships chart, even a transit, like for example, let's say the moon of the relationship, which is feelings, emotions, is going through a Pluto transit. So that means that this relationship, no matter what these two people are doing independently or together, the relationship is going through a huge transformation. So who they were a year ago, it's not who they are now, and they can't be who they were a year ago. So
right. And this is part of the relationship transit. Define a transit for me before we move on.
a
How do you define a
transit
transit?
a transit is the aspect or the relationship that a planet in the sky in this current moment is establishing with something in our chart.
Okay, okay,
So,
right,
we had the full moon, or we have the sun in Aries, and the sun in Aries is doing something to your chart, to my chart, to everyone.
right.
So
And that effect will be on
in
everybody.
yeah, so in your case, you have Aries in the 12th house, which is the area of the unconscious, where you are withdrawing and retreating, and where you go to heal or to be more introspective.
Right,
And for you, all these Aries season until the end of April is going to be about bringing light to areas that are hidden, that are maybe unconscious, maybe more of dream world or dream work, being not
right.
so seen and visible. So it's like retreating for you, because that's
For
what,
mine, this is based on my chart, right?
it's based on your chart.
And that's
So,
exactly how I feel. But
and
I've been feeling that way for a long while though, but that's a whole nother story. But
yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, as you are, so continue. So that's
So when I do therapy with couples, it's very complex. But the couples, they don't need to know these things. I know
right,
them, and
right. You know them.
if they are my clients and we've been working together, then they develop some language, so I can speak with them about it. If they are interested and they don't know anything about astrology, I may tell them. But if they are not interested and they don't want to get into that because they have their own thing going on, I am going to
Right,
translate everything I see in a way in which helps them understand what's
right,
happening in that moment in time for them or for their relationship. So,
right. But I
um,
realized that you said that
and
the signs
yeah,
don't have necessarily compatibility, but you look at the charts. Are there
yes.
ever incompatible charts, or there's always a way to work through?
I think there is a way to
A
work
chart?
through, and what's happening, we usually attract people, we enter relationships with people who who are going to trigger something in our chart. So let's say me and you are in a relationship, we are very compatible, the same sign. You have Taurus ascendant, that works with me because I'm a Venus, strongly Venusian. However, my Pluto is on your Saturn, or your Saturn is on my Sun. So we develop a sort of power dynamic between me and you. Sometimes you act as a father figure, sometimes I act as a destroyer. Pluto is a destroyer. So you see, we can be extremely compatible, but then if one of my planets trigger something in your chart and vice versa, we tend to go in that zone a lot, and couples do that. So it requires a lot of consciousness to not project and not like almost roll with the energy, and take yourself back and look at what's happening. And if you don't know astrology, if you don't know therapy, or if you don't read and you're not aware, if you're just a simple person doing its own thing and nobody's there to open your eyes, it's very hard to understand what's going on.
And I guess maybe in even more layman terms, you're almost trying to avoid the trigger point areas with the knowledge. If you can. I
mean, if you have the knowledge, I don't think you can avoid it, because you are aware.
Exactly.
And it's never about the partner, it's always about you and your past and your relationship with your parents and what's happening, what's been happening for you in your first, let's say, 15 years of life, but then is getting projected on your partner. And this can happen with a boss, for example, or with anyone, with a child. I work a lot with parents and children. Probably the same volume of work I get from parenting issues I get from couple issues. So it's not like I have more couples than parenting stuff.
Right.
But what is good is that the parents that come and work with me, they are very open to my view on things. And there are charts between parents and children that are very, let's say, incompatible. Like, it's very, very hard to blend these two energies. And it's also hard because a child, you cannot ask a child to change its natural ways. And the more you try to condition them, they rebel, especially if you have a child with Sun Uranus or Aquarius ascendant with Pluto on the ascendant. Like, these children or these people are not going to obey rules, are not going to fit in, are not going to, so some certain parents don't want that. They want
especially, and that's where culture ties into things a lot as well too. Exactly. How do you feel about how religion intersects with all of this? And I'm saying religion loosely. I didn't say Christianity. I want to say religion. How does religion intersect with this based on what you know?
So I never had a problem. Like, I never had people who came with that statement or that view. And I don't.
If they're leading with Christianity, then maybe this is not the style of therapy
not for them.
Right?
So they avoid me. I don't necessarily avoid them. But I never had that problem. I had more the problems that I get are more from this professional level, other psychologists and other peers.
Yes.
Not just in Jamaica, but also in my own country. Like 2 years ago when I went to Romania to renew my license, I added in my CV, I did a master's in cultural astronomy and astrology, and that's the only academic program in the world in England, in Wales. Nobody else does it at that level. So nobody else looks into every culture around the world and their relationship with the sky and their mythology and history and religion, and nobody looks into that. So I did this master's and I added it. So the person I had the interview for the licensure. They were like, "What is this? Why did you put this here? Astrology? What is this?" And I said, "Well, this is a master's. Like, this is an academic program." Yeah, but
this is,
that's not okay. And I said, "Well, it is okay for me." So they barely renew And they actually there was like a panel of 5 psychologists, and they talked between themselves, and I felt so not okay with all of that.
Right, right.
So it's not necessarily a religion that comes at me from a perspective of this is not okay. What you do is
There's
not okay.
professional judgment as well too, which is interesting. I didn't think about that, but that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Some people don't recognize it as as valuable, significant, right?
They don't. And when I speak about astrology as being the oldest way of doing psychotherapy, is the oldest, thousands of years old practice of therapy, of counseling. People look at you and like, what are you saying? Well, it is the foundation of everything, from politics. The state and everything in politics is modeled after the myth of even the myth of creation, not the Christian myth of creation with Adam and Eve, but any other myth that speaks about the existence of earth and the god sky and the pantheon of the Greeks, for example, or any other culture.
Right.
So, but it's
not. I think.
It's not my purpose to open people's eyes in that way. I don't align with that purpose, so I don't get triggered, or I don't go into those conversations.
Right. Well, I think now might be a good time to talk about some natal charts. How about we transit into natal charts? All right. So we have my natal chart. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm a proud Libra. I'm not discussing my year of birth. Alina and I spoke about this, but I am October 9, and I'm going to hand it back over. And I was born at 7:45 p.m. in St. Andrew, Jamaica at University Hospital. I'm handing over to Alina.
So now I'm looking.
Take me anywhere you want. Let's talk about the value of the natal chart, using me as an example. And you too, I think, because you know yours inside out.
Yes. I'm looking at your chart right now, and I start with the ascendant, which is the moment of birth. And that's why it's very important when anybody goes to an astrologer, they have to know the time of birth, because the ascendant or rising sign is being given by the time of birth, and your ascendant is Taurus.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes, and that means the ascendant is the way we navigate life, is how we drive through life, is the pathway, the style we go through life. And as a Taurus, you are motivated and driven by pleasure, and pleasure can be anything, the pleasure of senses. So nice clothes, nice environment, nice car, nice things, beautiful things.
Yes.
And Taurus also shows that you start, because the ascendant is how we start things. You start, I would call it you start sensible things. You don't start for the sake of doing something if it's not sensible enough for you, and you may take longer than other people or other signs to start something, because you have to make sure that particular project or situation you get into or relationship is
makes sense.
worth, or you are not someone who would jump into it, that's for sure. And you take your time and sensibility. And when I say sensible, I mean it's almost like a practical, pragmatic, functional, but also pleasure-oriented combination. All of these things are being assessed, even unconsciously, by you or your soul, your higher being, in determining if this is for you or not, whatever that is.
Right.
In contrast with that, your moon is in Gemini. And the moon, I said, it represents our emotions, feelings, how we react to anything in life, how we react without thinking. So it's like a more spontaneous way of participating with life. And in Gemini, as much as your Taurus ascendant takes its time and evaluates things, Gemini moon reacts spontaneously, I would say, to anything from the environment. So it's almost like you are, imagine 5 bulbs being lit in the same time, and you don't know where to go and where to look and what to touch. And so it's like this variety of stimuli that create your emotional life and your reactions to life. It's like a lot of it is happening in relation to the environment. So it's not happening by itself. It's always in relation to someone, something, a project, something you read, something you hear about. So Moon in Gemini likes to hear the news, to have many friends from different places, adapts very well, is very malleable. And I would say, in terms of your emotions, you also intellectualize them first. Almost like you don't feel them, you rationalize them. You bring an idea to translate what you are feeling. You label, you need words, you need to talk about them. And if it gets too much, like, we all go through certain things in life that is going to surpass our natural ways of interpreting life and reality. If it gets too much, then it may be problematic for you with that air, Libra and Gemini, to navigate emotions. But you do have some Scorpio in you, so that may help. Yeah, you do have a little bit of Scorpio that can help with going deep in the underworld when things get too high.
It kills all of the traditional horoscope associations that I had. So immediately when you say certain signs, they trigger certain thoughts that I associated with them. But when you take it to the natal chart level, you really can't just pull one sign and a list of character traits, because the interaction is so much more complicated.
Yes,
and it's just saying.
It's all about interaction. It's not about the signs independently.
Exactly, individually. And I think that's how most people view this traditionally.
And that's what the report gave us, because everything is computerized and we get a report about our chart, but the report doesn't really speak about the relationship, how your ascendant works with your sun or your moon, or how your Mercury in Scorpio is going to help your moon in Gemini to process feelings, or
right.
So
I can't really say I've disagreed with anything that you've said, really. But what in my estimation of it, all I would say is that I think as we get older and as we evolve, I think the degree to which some of these things exist may change. So as I hear some of them, I can relate to them. They resonate with me, but at the same time, I feel like for me, some of them have shifted a bit.
And every time we go through a major transit, that happens because the way we express that energy has to shift. So you had, for example, in your case, in 2019, April, May 2019, for about, let's say until the end of 2019, you had a major Uranus transit to your ascendant. This happens once in a lifetime. So something in your life path shifted completely in 2019. Relationships probably shifted. Something in your mindset, how you think about things, may have changed from what used to be conventional to what maybe you would have called unconventional. And in the same, maybe not in the same time, but immediately after that, like to 2020 and even now in 2021, there is a huge transformation around your vocation in your career. So I'm not sure if anything is happening right now in terms of career in your life, like a purging of something. And it's almost like a rebirth.
Doing like a rebirth, eh? Well, I feel like maybe that's going to happen soon, but let's see.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, this is very interesting. Tell me a little bit about the hypnosis part of all of this.
So hypnosis is something I did because I resonated with the person who created the method, which is Milton Erickson. And he he had this view that no matter what the client gives, so first of all, he didn't see patients, he saw clients. So, depending on who you are talking with, a psychologist may refer to the client as patient. I never refer to them as patients. I refer or as ill people, or I refer to them as clients. So, in a time where everything was about, in this field, everything was about illness and lack, and it was seen as problematic, Milton Erickson was the only one who didn't see it in that way, and that resonated with me. So he shaped a lot of my thinking, not only in terms of my career, my vocation, but in terms of how I see life. So he's one of the people who influenced my thinking a lot, Milton Erickson, and he is considered the father of clinical hypnosis. He was a psychiatrist, but he developed this method of trance and hypnosis, and he applied it to any problem his patients were having, because he was dealing with people who were hospitalized, and so I went and I studied that because it was the only thing that aligned with my values at that moment in time in my 20s. And I didn't change too much. I didn't drift from that. And more, the field of therapy goes into that direction, but still I'm definitely shocked to go to a conference where there are, maybe 100 of schools of therapy, and they all get together and there are workshops, and still there are still people who see someone with a symptom and they see them as ill or as problematic, when from my perspective, if that person is born with Sun Pluto or Sun Neptune, even better, let's say they have Sun or Moon Neptune, that person is going to live anxiety every day of their life. But is it anxiety or is it something else? So there are two layers that in a way make me feel fringe in this world of therapy. There is definitely the astrological level that I cannot forget. I cannot stop that from my mindset, So when I see someone, even if I don't know their chart, I can feel the archetype. I know if that's a strong Neptune or a Pluto there, or something like you are born with Sun Pluto and you are a very intense person, and we can go into the shadow side of that a lot, and it can make you very problematic. I'm a Sun Pluto person, and there are certain people who we may be even put in, we both, me and you, we can get the label of what's that label, not depressed, but it doesn't come to me right now. When someone hysterical. Okay. Yeah, so we can be called hysterical. So if just looking at your chart, and I know my chart, and if we go and we do all the psychological tests and something, they may call histrionic. We may be both histrionic, so we may have a disorder. We may have a personality disorder. Why? Because we have traits like intensity, depth. We can't deal with anything unless we go very deep into it. We can become very obsessed with different things. So both me and you, when we are studying something or thinking about something, or when we are actually invested in something, we merge with that particular thing. So we can we become compulsive about certain things.
You know what's interesting about that I think maybe one or two people in my life have ever used the word intense for me. And I find that in our culture, especially in Jamaica, if you're polite or pleasant, or that those two things really ever
they don't go together,
because they don't see you as intense because you are so polite. I always tell people, I think my interpretation of it, as maybe my layman interpretation, I always say to people that I'm a really nice person, but I said I'm a very serious person. Serious is the word I always use. I say I'm serious about life. I'm serious about morals. I'm serious about principles. which I think can translate as intense if you get close to it. But I think if you stand far away from it, it just looks really nice.
Yeah.
But as you get closer to it, you realize it's really deep, you know?
Yeah. And this paradox. So you are born with the Libra planets, which are, they're very courteous, very
Right.
serious and very principled, but very courteous. Your moon in Gemini gives the vibe of understanding and being so adaptable. So you can speak with anyone, any person from all over the place on their language. So they see you as very easygoing. And then your Taurus ascendant makes you quite chill. Like you are someone, you're chill, you're not going to do. But when people live with you, when they actually live with you,
yes,
they get
they
to
live with you and
see,
they know you.
they get to see the other sides of your chart that are, it's not like
not hidden, but not visible to the outside. They are
not visible to the outside
easily, right?
So you are going to be considered very serious or very profound or very deep, because you do need more stimulation than others.
Right.
And maybe, I'm a woman, and it's maybe I'm biased because I'm a woman. Maybe it's harder for me to find men or even women who can come with me where I go, like in my own, in my own universe. It's not easy to be my partner in any journey I take,
right, because it's deep.
or it's just different, but I bet that if you are in your own element and someone lives with you, you go into your journeys too, and sometimes you may need to go there by yourself because it may be too much for certain people.
Maybe too much for somebody else. I know what you mean.
But we all have these things. It's not like someone has it more than others. There are certain people who are very lucky to, like sometimes I see these charts and I'm like, oh God, I wish, I ask my clients to tell me more about your problems, because from how I see your chart, like someone born with Sun, Jupiter, probably their problem is that they are a bit too bombastic, but they have it good because Jupiter gives that optimism and that positivity that you with Sun Pluto, me with Sun Pluto, we don't have that as much as we try to live that, and someone with Sun Jupiter or Sun on the ascendant, someone who is always surrounded by this aura of light and, they stand out. And there are certain things that are they are mind-blowing for me, knowing the chart, to see that in people, and I do wish I would have more of that sometimes. Right.
But it would be boring if we were all the same, right?
And we are not. And astrology shows that we are not.
Right. And it was intended to be that way. Would you say that you're aligned with your profession?
I don't know. I think I have these thoughts every day.
How did you end up there if you aren't? But tell me share with us a few of your thoughts on your personal alignment.
So I'm not sure. Yes, I'm not sure if this is that's the other side of my chart, which is Sagittarius. So I'm not sure if I'm sabotaging myself. I think my Libra planets would be very happy with what I do.
Absolutely.
But those Sag energies, I have Moon Neptune, Mars Neptune. It's almost like I long for something that I'll never have. And this is a lesson in astrology, because anybody born with Neptune close to one of their personal planets, they are longing. They are just longing, and that can sabotage a lot their dynamism and their actions here on Earth, because Neptune is not an embodied planet. So I'm always longing. And there is a part of me that I have to ground, and say to myself, okay, now be more pragmatic, stay grounded, don't go with the fairies, because that can trigger a bit of it's a subtle feeling of disappointment,
maybe even regret.
Although that Sag in me does things, like the will is very strong, so I do things,
Right.
but there is almost like it can't, I don't know what it is, but it's that Neptune that makes it very foggy, very misty, and it's a longing of something that, you know, if I focus too much on it, it takes away from the realness of my life and the real purpose and the real, like, my clients remind me of my purpose because they do validate me a lot, and they send me those texts and different things. But if I would not have that, and I would just be by myself with my own chart and my own feelings and thoughts, I may drift into a space that tells me I'm losing my time. I'm wasting my time. Like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's strange, you know? That's strange, because I am doing what I'm supposed to be. I am doing, like, when I'm doing, I am me. I'm not doing something because I put on a suit and I'm doing that, you know, like, I am am living what I'm doing.
It's authentic.
It's authentic.
Right. It's authentic. Interesting.
And in the same time, it's like, is this everything? Like, I know there, yes. You know, I know there are other things that are going to happen, but am I really helping anyone? Like, so I have, for me, is this conflict, this internal conflict of, and this is Neptune. Let me see where you have your Neptune. You have your Neptune in the 8th house of healing, speaking with your sun. So you have Sun, Neptune too, speaking with your Saturn, and your moon. So you understand a little bit of this because your structures and your foundation may be eroded by this Neptune. So there is something, so you can relate to this. I'm telling you how it applies to you. There is almost like a tension between you being strongly pragmatic and grounded and functional and doing things in detail, like detail work, and something that clouds that structure.
Yeah.
So you have a square between Neptune and Saturn, and there may be almost like a conflict. Conflict is the right term, but it's mostly internal. And you know, you have to learn how to navigate that, but that exists in you.
How to balance that, huh? It's interesting. For anybody who is a regular person who has a leaning to sound astrological stuff, where would you direct them to find like the real stuff and not the fluffy newspaper?
And it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous nowadays with social media and the stuff that you see there. Most of the things on social media are crap. Most of them. Like my good friends, they post different things on their stories, and I reply to them and I say, be careful, because this full moon in Libra is not about that.
Right.
So it's not about a full moon is never about releasing. It's about seeing. So, you know, people they are not trained in the astrological language. They have people who write about it. They have no training. And
they may not write accurately.
They don't. Yeah. They never do. Yeah. They never do. And I mean, I don't know what it is. I guess it's a generational thing, but more and more people who are younger than me and you find it very easy to express themselves
through
social media without having any substance. So that's where that Pluto comes in for me and you, Sun Pluto. We both recognize crap and lies, and we have a laser for that.
Quickly.
Just like that, you know. I mean, if we know if it's our object of interest or subject of interest, if it's our topic, we know, you know, because I would never know about economy or some other things I'm not trained in. But when it comes to something that we know, because of that Plutonian energy in us, we are very rooted in our subject matter, and we are not going to be able to tolerate any crap, you know. So
so back to telling me where to find the real stuff.
I do tell my clients, I send them articles and I teach them to go to something called astro.com. Astro.com is the best source of knowledge, but it's not easy to grasp that knowledge because you do need a little bit of understanding of mythology. And all the names that are right on that website, so all the authors that send articles there are in the academia. So whether they're doctors in history, in psychology, and so there it's a different level. However, they do have a more basic, and I think they have a subscription as well. So if you subscribe, then you get this daily guidance, and it's written in a way that is palatable, is okay, you can understand it, and it's definitely, in comparison to social media and what's out there on YouTube, and you can't
much
compare,
better, right? Much better.
It's very sad. I have to do this because I wanted to say this for a long time now, when you asked about couples and compatibility. So your Venus is 28 degrees Libra. My Sun is 28 degrees Libra. Sun Venus in any relationship means best friends.
Really?
So when I saw your chart, when I said send me your details to have your chart, and I saw that Venus, I was like, wow, it's so interesting that me and him, we didn't connect, and we didn't actually connect like closer, because my Sun in Libra brings light and highlights your Venus in Libra, which is love for knowledge, interest in anything that is Libran, aesthetic, beautiful, harmonious. So in our relationship, my Sun brings light on this love for things you hold into yourself, which you may not be triggered in it by other people. So the things you love, the things you value are highlighted by my Sun. Now your Venus helps my Sun, because Venus by itself has this gentle, loving quality. So from all the planets of the zodiac, we want a Venus transit, we want a Venus planet, we want someone with Venusian energy to touch our planet, our chart, because it brings softness and gentleness and like that sweetness. Only Venus can bring that sweetness. So there is a beautiful something,
how it communicates.
Yes, how it communicates. And this is just one thing in our chart, so
that means that you can't escape me from now.
Exactly. So we should have more conversations. And why do I say conversations? Because it's Libra. Libra is about speaking up. Libra in the books or in whatever articles, they say it's about aesthetics and balance, and it is. But the truth of it, or the core of it, not the truth, the core of Libra archetype is to speak
fairness,
up.
Right?
If we bring an Aquarius in the pain in the conversation, they are gonna speak more about fairness than me and you.
Right.
And the same with
we're non-confrontational. We're non-confrontational in the books. I know exactly. I say I'm selectively confrontational because if it triggers me, if it's something I'm passionate about, then I will speak up without apology. But generally, I stay out of the way.
Okay, so remember that balance thing with Libras? In any situation where Libra feels there is an imbalance, they are going to counteract. So they may be seen as the one that is actually confrontational, because what happens is they balance, they mediate. So if someone, let's say everybody would be supportive of Trump in a group, Libra may be the one that says no to Trump, because there is this need for balance. So it's interesting how I don't really adhere to the idea that Libras are not confrontational. I don't know of that too much, because Libra is a cardinal sign. There is a lot of leadership in it, and the leadership has to do with their thought process and the way they communicate. They may not They may not show aggressiveness, but they definitely show assertiveness.
I may have to come to you one day. I know, right? Look at us going to become best friends, and now I'm trying to book a therapy session. That's hilarious. That's also an interesting thing because you said you kind of live, it's a part of you, so it doesn't really turn off apart from with your family. But for me, like with traditional medicine, I often have to set clear boundaries between sometimes how the two interact, which I think is easier to do with traditional medicine than probably what you do. And there always these jokes about people and their therapists becoming very close. I mean, those kind of jokes. But in traditional medicine, I find that I have to be so very careful of how the lines cross. Matter of fact, sometimes I don't even want to see friends.
Yeah.
At the fear of, I don't know, risk of complication and how that may affect the friendship. Complication aside, you just don't want to disrupt the friendship.
You also have Saturn, Neptune, like we spoke, and Saturn in Virgo, and you need very clear boundaries. For you, it's...
Oh boy, they come in the boundary king.
Yeah. So for you, the clearer the boundaries, the better it is for you to feel aligned and okay with yourself.
Yeah. The funny part, though, is how we interpret what we do as people. So I'm sure your interpretation through the chart would be very different from my interpretation through the chart. I mean, in general, because I felt like growing up, I didn't have clear boundaries, so people could always kind of. And then as I grew older, I became very firm about boundaries. But I also think I set them because I feel like there's a little addictive tendency in me, the side of me that's a little wild and crazy. So if I don't set them, it's actually to protect myself from doing something that I don't want to do if the boundary is not there. While sometimes the person thinks the boundary is for them, but the boundary is really for me.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
Yes. And it is like that. I don't even know if it's a paradox, but they do work like that. And I think you are very aware of the fact that the boundaries are for you, but there are not many people who would understand that. They may think, yes, I put these boundaries for me, but they don't know in what way they do it. Like
right.
It's very complex.
It's complex. I mean, a great one for humans is a sexual boundaries. Yeah. Like if you know you're attracted to someone and you do the things like what a dating column would say, which is like meet in public places, have a daytime lunch, don't bring them over to your house, don't drink alcohol, which sounds really basic on the surface. But if you know yourself well, it's actually way deeper than that, because you know that if you create a setting that can facilitate more that you may be weak and falter. Yes. So you set these boundaries to protect yourself.
Yes.
So Alina, where can people find you on the internet, anywhere? Where can they find you?
They can find me on social media on Instagram, Alina Apostol, and my website is alinaapostol.com. But I do write on Instagram about the astrology of the time, like daily transits, full moons, new moons, and I do have lives on every season. Like this week, I'm going to have a very good live. I know it's going to be very good with a friend, with an Aries friend. So every season, every new sign, I invite one or two people who have strongly that sign, and I know their charts. And every time I see someone with at least 2 or 3 or 4 planets so strongly in that sign of the season, and I'm going to have this week is going to be Elena Lynch, which is a strong Aries, and that conversation is going to be very dynamic. I know it for sure.
I'm sure it's going to be
very dynamic. Aries, very Aries. So I'm on Instagram, and there is a lot of stuff in my posts and on my website. And I also have a podcast. It's called Living Astrology. And I do record every month, and I speak about the month. So in maybe tomorrow night, I'm going to record for April. And I talk about, the energy in April, what days are good for what. I think that's very useful.
Right. Yeah. So the month to come.
The month to come.
And before you go, tell me about what this real full moon in Libra means. Since when people hear this, it may be gone, but I still want to touch on it. What does it really
It's
mean?
actually very good to look inside to see what happened. So the last 3 days, and even today, the energy was strong. So normally a full moon in Libra talks about or shows evidence around relationships and balance and partnership. However, this one, a full moon is when the moon in the sky is in opposition with the sun. So the moon absorbs the light of the sun. So what happened, the sun was next to Venus, the planet of love and what we value, and next to Chiron, which is our woundedness, our scars. So these 3 days of the full moon were not so much about relationships, but they were around, it was about seeing something very wounded about what we value or what we love. So it was a combination of love, maybe relationships, and woundedness and scars. And if you look at what emerged in the last 2-3 days on social media, especially here in Jamaica, it was all about the missing girl who was abused and killed, and everybody was writing about violence against women and supporting women, and so it's very interesting that this exploded under this full moon in Libra, where the planet of love and women, feminine, which is Venus, was next to the sun in Aries, which is an energy that wants action, fast action, and it can also shows aggressiveness, but also Chiron in Aries, which shows a woundedness and scars, and something that is not, it's not acceptable. It's not, we don't want to look at it. We shy away from things like that. So this full moon highlighted that. And in everyone's life, if we are honest, we may have seen these 2-3 days, or we may have seen something that could have gone into a space of woundedness, or maybe we've done some work that prevented that from happening. Right. So there are cases, and I know from people who message me these days about this full moon, how they saw their scars and they were not reactive about them. So they were able to stand in that Libran awareness, rational awareness, and not be impulsive, which is very Aries. But it was about seeing something that had to do with woundedness and healing, and the things that we value, are they really, it's almost like, are we living our values or are we not living our values? Because if we all say we do, but if we would do, would so many bad things happen if we would actually live our values?
Right, exactly.
It's more like but not doing. So it's complex with this full moon, but
it's interesting. Yeah. Well, Alina, you've just proved to me that we've only touched the tip of the iceberg, which means that this is hey, you studied tons of years about this, and I've read and done many courses. The depth of knowledge you have cannot be even touched in an hour. But thank you once again, and we will have to talk to you again. We're just gonna have to have another conversation.
I would love that. Any theme you pick, astrology can take you there.
Definitely. All right, I'm game. Thank you for being on Talk Truth, Alina. It was my pleasure.
You're welcome. It was lovely. Let's do this again.
Yes.
Thanks. Bye.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at TLKTRTH. That's Talk Truth without the vowels on all platforms. We do have talktruthja.com, spelled out TALKTRUTHJA.com. That's our website. And feel free to send us an email at talktruthja@gmail.com. gmail.com. As usual, this is Talk Truth, a place where your truth shall become your power and set you free. Until next time, guys, peace.